Jawohl, da sehen wir schon, eine richtige Langspielplatte, wie es früher hieß. Jawohl, jawohl, ich habe es ja eben schon gesagt. Einer der Urväter der britischen Punk-Rock-Bewegung ist jetzt hier bei mir zu Gast. Freue ich mich sehr drauf. TV Smith, und er hat seinen Kumpel gleich auch mitgebracht. Ritchie sitzt neben ihm, Drummer natürlich der Toten Hosen, und TV Smith ist unterwegs gerade bei uns in Nordrhein-Westfalen. Und wir haben sehr, sehr viel heute zu erzählen. Wir werden jetzt switchen rüber ins Englische, because thank you so much for being here, guys. It's really a pleasure meeting you.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure.
I'm working the microphone.
You work the microphone. That is perfect.
I'm a singer. I'm used to doing this. I can do this.
You told me before, he's just a drummer.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
No problem with a singer holding it.
This is going to be complicated. We're getting close.
But first of all, we should really look back a little bit to history. I mean, when you look back at punk music, we all know it was invented in Britain, was invented in London. And where did it all start for you guys? I mean, what was the first introduction for you to punk music? I mean, times were pretty rough back then, especially in the UK, when you talk about end of the 70s, early 80s, that's when it all started.
Well, I mean, one of the first punk bands I saw wasn't British, it was probably the Ramones, so, which was like, I think I saw them in 75 or something. I mean, that was mind-blowing, seeing a band that just came on stage with attitude, with the guitars slowed down low and just playing for a minute and a half, and that was it, and then they'd introduce the next song. I mean, that was absolute, you know, I've never seen anything like that in bands before. You got used to bands being lazy and pretentious and droning on for hours every song.
It's a complete different attitude back then, right?
It was a totally different, a new attitude, and I immediately loved that, because that was what had been missing from music for me. So, I was getting a band together at the time, and I thought, well, this is what I want. I want to be direct and, and say something and not just be kind of like titting around, stroking my own ego. It's about community.
Does that enough now?
Speaking of the band, there was the Adverts, right? I mean, you started that band back in 1976. I have to be honest, I was 2 years old back then when you started the band in 76. But how was that?
You look older.
Oh, thank you so much. What a compliment. Even though we all went into makeup, I look a lot older than that. No, but seriously, how was that 40 years ago? I mean, did you realize back then that you were part of something special, part of a certain movement? Or do you realize it now when you look back that it was like a completely different era?
Well, you know it now because, I mean, it's still going on. That's what's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, no, we didn't know. None of us knew. We didn't think about it. I mean, we were 19 years old. You don't think about whether what you're doing is going to last.
Yeah.
I mean, what you do is you do something that you feel is right. And, that's what I still do. You do something you believe in. And the great thing about punk rock was that everyone said, it'll be over in 6 months. And look at it, 40 years later, it's still as important, more important than it ever was. So I'm proud of that.
Because it is really, really genuine, the music itself. I mean, it literally came from the bottom up. It was real music about real people. That was the big difference.
Well, that doesn't age. That's the thing.
Yeah. There's an old clip, we're going to see that in a second, from 1977, Top of the Pops. You remember that, of course. You were there with the Adverts and with the song. We're going to listen to that in just 1 second, because then we can really see how far punk rock music really was back in the 70s, because that wasn't really the typical sound for Top of the Pops back then, right?
Well, no, not at all. Top of the Pops was a kind of, everyone in Britain grew up watching Top of the Pops once a week. It was the only exposure really to music we had, and most of it was the typical pop rubbish, so when punk bands were allowed on and we were allowed on, we could hardly believe, that we'd broken through this bastion of the music establishment. We were just kids, and to get on that program was quite something, and we looked completely out of place, I've got to say.
Well, we're going to look at that in just a second. That is actually a song that was covered by the Toten Hosen, I think in the early 90s, because this is Gary Gilmore's Eyes, and we're just going to quickly check it out, how you guys look back then, or you look back then. Top of the Pops, 1977. Here it is.
Listen to my earphones and I catch the evening news. A murderer's been killed and he donates his sight to science. I'm locked into a private board, I realize
almost 40 years ago that was, Top of the Pops. Incredible, really. We were talking about the Toten Hosen before, because they contacted you, I think, in the early 90s, because they covered this song, actually. That was for an album project called Learning English Lesson 1. And obviously, you have a very strong friendship with Vom, really going on. I mean, so he supported you on your last, I think, 6 albums. The new one, which was right up there, is also being released here in Germany on Vom's own record label, which is called Drumming Monkey Records. How did you guys meet, by the way?
Do you want to go for this one, Vom?
Yeah. Well, when I first joined the Hosen, Tim was coming on.
It was back in, I think, 1998. You joined Toten Hosen as the drummer, right?
I think so, yeah. And we did a vier something tour, 4 different countries and 4 shows. And Tim was doing the support, and then we kind of said, "Oh, hello, you know, how's it going?" And
Drunk a lot of beer together.
Drunk a lot of beer, and we was. You know, friends ever since, and then we've played together on the last. Well, I've played together with Tim on the last 6 albums, and yeah, it's still going very well. We're doing a couple of songs tonight, and then in November we're playing at the Pitcher in Düsseldorf.
No, that's an
2 shows,
right.
Yeah, but I think it could be sold out. But tonight isn't.
Tonight, also heute Abend ist noch nicht alles ausverkauft. Wir können definitiv noch vorbeigehen, nämlich in Düsseldorf sind sie heute Abend. Wenn wir es live auf der Homepage noch mal ganz kurz angucken. And you actually on the road, I think, since the early 90s, touring solo. And also what I think is really fascinating, you've been writing books about life on the road as a musician. I think 5 books altogether is like a sort of like a diary. I mean, you must have seen so many unbelievable and funny and hilarious and probably even a lot of sad things as well being on tour.
Yeah, I just at some point I thought, because it's kind of different being on the road on your own. You know, bands tend to be in their enclosed group, and the same things happen every day. And you know, we all know the rock and roll cliche of bands on the road. But solo is kind of different, because I've got my suitcase and my guitar, and I get on a train or a bus, and I go to a gig and meet new people every night, and different things happen. So it's not about the big world of, you know, the rock and roll cliche. It's about all the little things and the people you meet, and the funny, and sad things that happen. And I just thought, well, I'm going to forget this if I don't write it down. So I started writing it down, and it just sort of carried on. And the latest book that I've just brought out is the 5th one.
Part 5, exactly.
It's going to be the final one, actually, because it's. I think I've done enough now.
It's going to die soon.
I will if I keep writing books as well as trying to do 130 gigs a year.
But before actually we hear you guys live in the studio, we have to play one song of the new album, which is called Replay. And then in a few minutes, we'll hear you actually here on stage. You'll be performing a song. Thank you so much for this point. Tim and Vom, thank you so much. And this is the brand new song, the brand new album, which is right there on vinyl. Here is T.V. Smith, and this is called Replay.
How come everything I say is on replay? How come you spend so much time trying to find something new? But even though the line looks straight, it ends up in a loop. How come everything I say is on replay? How come everything I do is on replay too? How come every step I take is in a footprint?